One of Vladimir Putin's biggest enemies joins me in moments to take us inside the Russian leader's mind. This, as the ceasefire in Ukraine passes the 2 hour mark and counting. Pro Russian separatists and Ukraine's military forces stopped firing on each other at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. But will the ceasefire hold? Mistrust is obviously high on both sides. The U.S. wants Putin to stop meddling in eastern Ukraine. The Kremlin, for their part, they deny that Russian forces are even inside Ukraine. My next guest stood up to Russia when tanks invaded his small country back in 2008. The president of Georgia at that time held his ground until Russian tanks retreated. That former president, Mikheil Saakashvili, joins me now from Kiev, the Ukrainian capital. President Saakashvili, thank you very much for joining us. What do you think the prospects are for this ceasefire? Do you think it'll hold?
Thank you for inviting me. First of all, I have to tell you that I'm joining you in my new capacity as head of board of advisors to President Poroshenko. I accepted this position a few days ago because I believe that he's a man of peace. He's somebody who wants to cease this war. I come, as you rightly said, from the experience, from the background of knowing what the war with Russia looks like, and there is no normal person, or especially the president, who would like his people to die or to send his soldiers into the harm's way. Having said all that, I spent a whole evening tonight with President Poroshenko, and I have to tell you that he is pretty realistic about the prospects. We know that Putin is after the Ukrainian democracy. He wants to undermine them. He thinks that if Ukraine gets time for the reforms, for changes, for all kind of, for the issues connected with tackling the economic problems, then Putin will consider that he has failed. So, yeah, we are pretty realistic about the chances, and we know that it might not hold, but we'll do our best to keep it.
And you said that you believe that Vladimir Putin is trying to undermine Ukraine's democracy. What is his end game? What is he after, do you think, in the end here?
Well, in short term, he certainly wants to inflict military defeat on Ukrainians in this place called the Baltsev. It's a key railway juncture. Now, amazingly so, Ukrainians have put up an heroic resistance, and Putin has been doing his best to advance in the last days. But in fact, what had happened, that Ukrainians have counterattacked, liberated some of the places in southeast of Ukraine, and they've been holding pretty well under very, very heavy artillery shelling in this place called the Baltsev. Putin basically there was terror talks in Minsk, as you might know, and actually Putin was trying to delay ceasefire because he needed time to take more territory, to control more, to have better place from which he could further undermine Ukraine. So actually, he failed to get that. That's why he's continuing to shell, or he has been continuing to shell in the last few hours.
And do you think he is trying to stall the West from sending defensive arms to Ukrainian forces? As you know, the Obama administration is weighing that decision as we speak, and they have said that the ceasefire doesn't really change that calculus, that option remains on the president's desk. Do you think the president should exercise that option?
This is absolutely crucial. And actually, Hillary Clinton had recently said, the former secretary and my good friend, that Ukrainians have deserved to get defensive weapons because of the heroic resistance they put up in their fight for freedom and for Western values. And head of our Senate Arms Committee, John McCain, had been a vocal proponent of sending Ukrainians the weapons. But I think ultimately the last decision lies with the White House. And Secretary Kerry has been also, privately expressing his support for this. So there is a consensus building up. There is a new Secretary of Defense, Ashton Carter, who basically openly advocates arming Ukraine. Right. And one have to say that Ukrainians are not asking for attack weapons. They're asking for defensive weapons because they are asking for anti-armor weapons. So they have to defend themselves from advancing Russian tanks so that Russians would not take over new cities and new places. They're asking for the unmanned flight satellite devices so that they could monitor advances of Russian troops, and they are asking for artillery tracking radars so that they know from which place the Russians are firing at it. And I think it's
that is something we'll have to obviously watch as we move forward here, whether or not the Obama administration exercises that option. President Saakashvili, we have limited amount of time. We're going to have to leave it there and move on. But thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your perspective, especially after your dealings with Vladimir Putin. That perspective is crucial. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it.